How's your week going so far? My name is Alicia.
I'm Nicole.
Why don't we take a little time away from the hustle and bustle of adulting and let's indulge our curiosities just for a bit and talk about killers, psychos, and the unexplained.
Today we are venturing to Florida to talk about Paul John Knowles and the Flat Tire Murders.
Welcome to Florida, home of Paul John Knowles, also known as the Casanova Killer, who decided to murder at least 18 people in 1974, although he does claim at least 35. Paul Knowles was born in Orlando, Florida on April 25th, 1946, to Thomas Jefferson Knowles and Bonnie Strickland. I guess either his parents gave him up for adoption or he was taken away from them. I'm not sure. But I guess he grew up in the foster care system and ended up incarcerated by the time he was 19 years old. In early 1974, while serving time at Rayford Prison in Florida, now known as Florida State Prison, he began writing to a divorcee named Angela Kavik, who lived in San Francisco. They fell in love and eventually became engaged. His new fiancée even paid for his legal counsel and helped him out of jail. Paul, now a free man, flew directly to California to be with her. But once she met him, she called off the wedding, stating he projected a quote unquote aura of fear that terrified her. So he
Oh,
wasn't given the right vibes. So Paul's upset by this, obviously. And what does one do when we are upset? Murder 3 people on the street of San Francisco that night, of course. None of this was legally verified, but this is what Paul claims happened. After that, he decided to return to Jacksonville, Florida. He was soon arrested after stabbing a bartender during a fight, but he picked a lock in his detention cell and escaped on July 26, 1974. After his escape from police custody, Paul begins his 4-month multi-state crime spree. Buckle up, baby. Paul's on the loose, and he's audio taping all of his escapades.
wait, what?
Yes. So these tapes were discovered by authorities after Paul's capture. So not everything outlined has been proven like definitively. However, this is Paul's story, right?
Yeah.
Tell Paul's story his way. On the night of his escape from police custody on July 26, 1974, while still in Jacksonville, Paul broke into the home of 65-year-old Alice Henrietta Curtis. He gagged her, stole her money, her valuables, and her car. Then Paul decided to have murdered a teenage girl named Alma in Georgia on December 21st. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations identified this victim as 13-year-old Ima Jean Sanders, who disappeared on August 1st, 1974 in Warner Robins, Georgia, and whose skeletal remains were found in April of 1976, so a couple years later. Then on August 1st, 1974, he claimed he had kidnapped 11-year-old Liliana Annette Anderson and 7-year-old Mylette Josephine Anderson outside of Jacksonville. Although the girl's disappearance was never solved, investigators said that they do believe this was a false confession, but who knows, right?
Wouldn't you know, like, wouldn't it be somewhere that a 7-year-old and 11, right, were kidnapped?
Yeah, that just disappeared. Yeah.
So we're already showing signs of crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, these are according to his audio tapes. This is what he says happened. And then, kind of a lot of these things can't really be proven. So they're not really sure if it really happened or if it's just some kind of thing he created in his mind. But I mean, seems plausible. August 2nd, 1974, Paul met Marjorie Howie, 49, in Atlantic Beach, Florida. She was later found strangled in her apartment, and her television was stolen. Then on August 23rd, 1974, Paul forced his way into the home of 24-year-old Kathy Sue Pierce in Mosella, Georgia. He strangled her, but at least he left her 3-year-old son physically unharmed. That is, there's that. Then on September 3rd, 1974, 32-year-old William Bates was seen with a redheaded man at a Scott's Inn, which is like a roadside pub near Lima, Ohio. He's traveling.
Yeah.
William's wife ended up reporting him missing. Police end up finding Alice's vehicle abandoned now. So that's that first lady that he stole her car. So now they just found her vehicle abandoned. But now William's car is missing. So I guess Paul decided to change the whip up. In October, William's body was found. He had been strangled and dumped in the woods. Then on September 18th, 1974, now driving William's car, Paul bound and killed two campers, 62-year-old Emmett Alexander Johnson and 59-year-old Lois Mildred Johnson, at a rest stop near Ely, Nevada. He is all over.
Yeah.
Then on September 22nd, 1974, 42-year-old Yvonne Charlene Hicks was reported missing by her family. Her body was later found discarded beside the road sometime during September of 1975. So it had been a little bit. It had been almost like a year. Like a year later, they found her body. But her body was found near Seguin, Texas. So he traveled with her for a minute, obviously.
Whether she was dead or alive, she was moved.
Yeah, unknown. She had been raped and strangled.
Ugh.
Then on September 23rd, in Birmingham, Alabama, he appeared to have met 49-year-old beautician Ann Jean Dawson. It's unclear as to whether he abducted her or if she was like traveling with him willingly, but Paul claimed he killed her on September 29th, threw her body in the Mississippi River. Her body was found in November of 1977. Then on October 16th, in Marlborough, Connecticut, 35-year-old Karen Wine and her 16-year-old daughter, Dawn Marie Wine, were both bound, raped, and strangled after their home was broken into. The only thing missing from their home was a tape recorder. Authorities say that Paul was the perpetrator. So here's his tape recorder that he's audio taping all of his escapades.
Gross.
Then on October 18th, 53-year-old Doris Hosey was shot to death with her husband's rifle. The gun was in place beside her body and left there. Paul picked up two hitchhikers in Key West, Florida, and was stopped by a police officer. He was still driving the car that he had stole from William, but for some reason, even after pulling Paul over, noting that the car wasn't even his, and there's two hitchhikers, the kids are in the car, he was let off with a warning. Obviously, he was shaken up by this experience, and he ended up dropping off the hitchhikers in Miami. He didn't harm them, though. So they got lucky that he was obviously like, oh man, I'm going to get caught.
Well, the police seen him with them.
Yes, in a car that was not his.
So he's not trying to murder them because they'll definitely come back on him.
Yeah. Ugh. So around this time is when Paul starts recording his audio tape confessions. He started mailing them to his lawyer in Florida. So he's like audio taping things as he's going and just mailing them to his lawyer. Like, hey, bro, I did this today. Here you go. Hey, bro, I did this. Here you go. So I guess that's what he would do, since lawyer confidentiality or whatever. He would record what he was doing, send the tapes, like for safekeeping, I guess. Then on November 2nd, 23-year-old Edward Hillard and 20-year-old Debbie Griffin disappeared while hitchhiking near Macon, Georgia. Hillard's body was found near the woods, while Griffin's remains were found in Crawford County, Georgia, on August 29, 1975. Knowles is reportedly suspected in their murders. Then on November 6, 1974, in Middle Ridge, Georgia, Knowles befriended 45-year-old Carswell Carr Sr. and was invited back to the Carswell house to spend the night. So he met this guy. He's like, I don't have a place to crash. So the guy's like, all right, bro, come crash on my couch. It's cool. Well, he ended up stabbing him to death. And he also strangled Carr's 15-year-old daughter, Amanda Beth Carr, and attempted necrophilia on that teenager's body.
Gross.
So don't be nice to people. Just don't.
Straight up sick. What?
Yeah. Then on November 8th, Knowles met 45-year-old British journalist Sandy Fox in Atlanta. Sandy said that he impressed her with his looks, which were a cross between Robert Redford and Ryan O'Neal. The pair spent a few days together, but Sandy said Paul was unable to perform when they attempted to have sex. The next day, Paul picked up one of Sandy's friends and demanded sex from her at gunpoint. She escaped and notified the police. So, like, he was feeling bad, like, well, I can't get it up anymore. So he went and took one of her friends and tried to get it with her at gunpoint. Yeah. So when the patrolman tried to apprehend him, he pulled out a sawed-off shotgun and he was able to escape. Days later, in West Palm Beach, he broke into Beverly Mabel's home, abducted her 32-year-old sister, Barbara Maybe Abel, and stole their car. From there, he traveled to Fort Pierce, arriving the following night. As Barbara later publicized in her book, quote, One Survivor, unquote, she was raped during her captivity before she was released. Then on the morning of November 16th, 35-year-old Charles Eugene Campbell, a Florida state trooper, recognized the stolen car. Unfortunately, while the officer was trying to detain Paul, he wrestled the gun away from him and took Charles hostage and drove away in that police car
Wait, so now he's taken a police officer hostage?
and his car.
Oh my God.
Knowles used the police siren to stop a 29-year-old motorist, James Mayer, putting both hostages now in James's car. So he ditched the police car. He took the two men to a wooded area in Pulaski County, Georgia. So he'd been driving for a while and handcuffed them to a tree before shooting each of them in the head at close range. So this man is just up and down the U.S., just up and down, up and down.
Using 75, it sounds like.
Seems that way, probably. Yeah, probably. Shortly after the incident, Paul became involved in a car chase with Henry County Sheriff's deputy, Charles Hancock. So now this deputy's recognizing that this car, is stolen. So he's, they're in like a whole car chase now. So eventually crashing the car through a police roadblock, escaping on foot while firing several shots at officers. So anyway, after a very lengthy and chaotic foot chase, Paul was finally captured on November 17th, 1974. Then on December 18th, 1974, while he was being transported to Henry County, Georgia by two officers for a press release, he grabbed one of the officers' handguns from the back seat, causing it to discharge in the holster. And while this was happening, the other officer was he ended up shooting Paul 3 times in the chest, killing him, bringing this awful case to an end.
I almost feel like because of all of his Houdiniing and escaping, it was probably the best. I know the families didn't get their quote unquote day in court.
No.
You probably were never going to. The man kept escaping.
Exactly.
Oh, well, that was a roller coaster of a ride.
A lot. That's why it was so hard. I was like, I'm just gonna tell it from his side, I guess. What the things that all this confession tapes.
Right. Oh. All right. Well, the Flat Tire murders were a series of unsolved murders in Broward and Dade counties, now known as Miami and Dade counties, between February 1975 and January 1976. A list of suspected victims, including 12 girls and women whose bodies were discovered in or near South Florida canals. Victims range from ages 12 to 35. Suspect was described as a white male between 20 to 25, well-dressed, physically athletic and attractive, possibly married, likely very intelligent with an above-average IQ, and a sexual sadist. They believe he charmed his victims and lured them to his car. A $1,000 reward was announced for any info leading to an arrest. It was later raised to $6,000. They believe he was responsible for several murders in the 70s across several states and possibly starting in California. Most cases, victims resembled each other, were beaten and raped before death. Killer then stripped them and threw them in the canal, stream, or left them near an embankment. A total of 35 murders were recorded. Some of his victims were the following. 19-year-old Judith Ann Judy was what they called her. Ostenling, you'll have to forgive my enunciation of that, was from Indiana. She went missing on February 1st, 1975 from Dade County. 2 days later, her body was found in a canal. Barbara Davis Stevens, who was 23, went missing on February 12th, 1975. She was going to go visit her friend. Her car was found in a parking lot near Miami, and her body was found in a wooded lot on February 20th. She was clothed still, but her underwear was pulled down and she was stabbed in the abdomen multiple times. 17-year-old Arnetta Marie, nicknamed Remy, Tinker, was dropped off by her husband at the Hippopotamus Lounge on April 9th, 1975. 3 days later, her body was found floating in the Snake Creek Canal. She drowned, and police suspect it was murder. So when he threw her in that creek, she was not even dead yet.
No.
Can you imagine dropping like your significant other off and then like they're never heard of again?
And you find him in Snake Creek. Oh,
Yeah. 19-year-old Nancy Lee Fox from West Palm Beach was last seen June 13th, 1975. 2 days later, her body was found floating in a canal. She was hit in the back of the head and choked before being placed in the water. 14-year-old Robin Leslie Locke was found dead July 10th, 1975, by a family who was vacationing. She was reported missing 2 days earlier. She had drowned and was found fully clothed. 27-year-old respiratory therapist Ronnie Sue Gorlin went missing July 22nd, 1975. The next day, her naked body was found in the Graham Canal. Signs she had been sexually assaulted and then stabbed to death. Her car was found in a shopping center with a slashed tire. 8 days later, July 30th, 1975, 21-year-old Elise Rapp, originally from New York, was last seen at a Hollywood mall. Her car rental was found in the parking lot with a deflated tire. The next day, her body was found in the same canal where Gorlin's body was found. She died from drowning but was sexually assaulted prior to her death. 15-year-old Mary Copella and 27-year-old Marlene Annabelli had traveled from Pennsylvania to rent a room for a week at the Lauderdale Beach Club on October 17th, 1975. Their bodies strangled with a rope and found by a motorcyclist 9 days later in a dump outside the city. The body of 17-year-old Michelle Winters was found floating in the Snapper Creek in Pembroke Pines on January 11th, 1976. Winter's mother told police she likely entered the killer's car voluntarily since she preferred to hitchhike. Two victims we did not talk about yet were Barbara Suzanne, who used to go by Barbie Schneider, and Belinda Darlene Zetterwer. Both were 14 years old. They were last seen on June 18th, 1975. The next morning, a family fishing discovers their bodies lying side by side along the canal. They had been shot to death and found fully clothed, no evidence of sexual assault. These two were removed from the list of the flat tire murders in August of 2023. One of their killers was identified through DNA to be Robert Clark Keebler, who had died in 2019. The other was discovered in May of 2025 as Lawrence Stein, a felon who died in 2005. That's when they decided these two were not part of the other victims since they were shot instead of drowned. Similar murders happened in California, Washington, and Utah. A majority of these murders would later be attributed to Ted Bundy. They later tied the murders together, saying each victim's car had one flat tire, was parked in a shopping center, and each drove a rental or a lease with e-tags. E-tags are what they use on toll roads to identify you. Each victim was also Jewish. All of their clothing was stripped, leaving each victim with only one piece of clothing. Victims were killed using a variety of methods, including shooting, stab wounds from an ice pick, and blunt force trauma from a hammer. Several other murders in the area were found through December 13th, 1975, and unlike Bundy, he was even more elusive, which may be why he was never found. So, the guy could be in prison for a different crime, right? And that's why it stopped. He could have moved to a different country for all we know. He could have died for all we know. Unlikely that you do all this horrific crime and then you just stop, right? So unless he's in another state and it was never linked to somebody who's in prison or has already been executed for said crimes, which is a possibility because technology really just wasn't what it is today, where they're able to link stuff a lot faster. Things like that, like I don't want to link up with this police department unless we have to, because I want to be the top dog on the in charge, right? So to this day, they still have no leads into the flat tire murders.
Man, the 70s was wild times. Both charming men just abducting and murdering, and Ted Bundy, him too. He was charming too, right?
Yep.
Wow. All right. So let us finish this off with a little of the unexplained. Florida's cryptic creature is the skunk ape. So the skunk ape is Florida's version of Bigfoot. I've seen it depicted on those maps that you see, when you pull them up on Google, it's got the little skunk ape up. It's usually up towards like Pensacola area. But so deep in the swamps and the forests of Florida lurks a 7-foot tall ape like creature with glowing red eyes. It's said to have an awful stench, like rotten eggs or moldy cheese. Apparently, this is how it got its name, the skunk ape, because it stank. So reports go back to the 1800s and are still active today. People have claims constantly that they see the skunk ape. Have you ever heard of the skunk ape? I know I did. I had heard of him.
I had not, surprisingly, but
Let us know. We're interested.
yeah, definitely. We would like to thank you for joining us in our discoveries of Florida this week. Please join us next week while we travel to Georgia. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our adventures next week into killers, psychos, and the unexplained.
Bye bye.
Bye!